The story revolves around twin brothers, JD and Moke, who grow up in a family full of thieves and criminals. JD has fully accepted this lifestyle and takes pride in stealing, but Moke just wishes for a normal life, away from the crime. Despite their differences, they work together as a team and steal whatever they can get their hands on to earn a living. In the opening scene, the two brothers are trying to crack open a safe they have just stolen. Using a makeshift explosive, just one of the many tricks they've mastered over the years, they manage to blow it open and retrieve the cash inside. The boys then head inside the house and show off the money they just stole, earning praise from their family members. Moments later, their mother, Kath, an experienced thief herself, arrives outside the house with her boyfriend, Glenn. It turns out they've just pulled off a robbery involving valuable emeralds, but the police are on their trail, and Glenn has been shot during the escape. They can't stay long and have only come to say their goodbyes. After quickly gathering her things, Kath hugs her sons and wishes them luck, telling them this might be the last time they see each other. She then jumps into the car with Glenn and drives off just as the cops arrive. As they flee from the police, Kath tries to reassure Glenn that everything will be fine and that she'll take him to the hospital soon. However, in an act of desperation, he grabs the precious and swallows them whole. The movie then cuts to 25 years later, and we learn that the couple managed to escape with the gems worth a whopping $4 million. JD and Moke also continue with the only life they know, pulling off robberies and barely staying out of jail. JD keeps insisting that each job will be the last, and they'll eventually leave it all behind. But Moke is no longer convinced. He resents being dragged into one robbery after another, always under the promise that things will change. One night, they plan another robbery, this time at a house they've studied in detail. They know the layout, the timing, and every possible exit. But while they're inside their van, they begin talking about their mother, who has been missing for 25 years. Moke blames her mother for abandoning them and leaving them to grow up in a world where stealing became the only option. JD, however, refuses to speak badly about her, saying she did what she had to do. After the two sort out their differences, they proceed with their mission and get inside the house. Moke handles the safe, using the skills he learned from years of watching and doing, while JD keeps watch near the front of the house. But just when everything's going smooth, a security guard unexpectedly arrives and spots JD standing there. Trying to avoid suspicion, JD pretends to be confused and says he's just delivering something. But the guard isn't buying it. He then moves forward to apprehend the thief, but right then, Moke strikes him from behind, knocking him unconscious. They know they have to leave immediately, but by the time they reach the front, the entire place is surrounded by police. Moke somehow manages to slip behind some furniture, but JD is caught and arrested on the spot. While being taken away, he quietly mutters that maybe staying home with a plate of plain food would have been a better choice than chasing after another promise of one last score. The story then jumps ahead 5 years, where JD is being released from prison earlier than expected. When another inmate asks how he managed that, JD casually claims it was for good behavior, though the truth is very different. As he steps out, a police officer named Farfel approaches him, and it's revealed that he used his connections to reduce the sentence. JD plays along in front of the others, thanking him and even offering help if Farfel's mother ever needs anything. But Farfel isn't interested in pleasantries. He pulls JD aside and makes it clear that his release wasn't a favor, it was part of a deal. JD has to bring him the precious emeralds that his mother had stolen 25 years ago. He warns him that if he even tries to play smart or back out, he'll personally make sure JD ends up in a much worse place than prison. Farfel then hands him a phone and tells him to stay in touch. On the other hand, Moke has left his criminal past behind. He's now living a quiet life, working at a restaurant, and is married with a child on the way. He has completely distanced himself from his former life of theft and wants nothing to do with crime anymore. But one day, without warning, his boss fires him on the spot. When Moke asks why, the boss explains that he had hidden his criminal record when he joined, and that's why he's being let go. Moke tries to defend himself, saying he's changed, but the boss refuses to listen. When Moke gets home, he's surprised to find his brother JD talking to his wife. Shocked and uncomfortable, Moke pulls him outside and asks how he got out of prison so early. JD admits that he made a deal with a police officer, and in exchange for his early release, he has to complete one more theft. He reveals that there's a clothing shop with a safe full of cash that Moke could open with ease. However, Moke immediately refuses, reminding him that he's no longer in that business now. He says his wife's parents and brother are soon visiting for a small party, and tells JD to just eat and leave quietly afterward. Later that evening, the guests arrive at the house, full of energy. As everyone gathers for dinner, JD casually starts telling stories about Moke's childhood, even joking that people once thought he would never become a father. This makes the situation very awkward, but no one utters a word. Later, when JD steps out to get drinks, he runs into Moke's brother-in-law and invites him to share a smoke. They then get high and start shouting at the top of their voices as if there's no tomorrow. When Moke sees his brother spoiling his special day, he loses his temper and starts beating him up. But before things could get ugly, his wife, Abby, steps in and separates them. Later, Moke decides to come clean and tells his wife that JD was never in the army. He was actually serving his sentence in prison for robbery and various other crimes. However, Abby responds that she already knew, as a man of JD's stature could never be selected in the army. She also admits they both have made mistakes in the past, but says it's time to leave all that behind for the sake of their child. Meanwhile, JD returns to the place he's staying and finds 17 missed calls on his phone. Before he can call back, Farfel suddenly arrives and throws him into the bathtub. The enraged officer demands to know why JD hasn't been answering his calls all day long. He then asks where the emeralds are, and JD tells him he's working on it but needs time to put a team together. Farfel doesn't believe a word he says, so he pulls out a gun, forces JD to place his fingerprints on it, and warns him that if he tries to back out, these prints will be used to send him straight back to prison. He then punishes the poor guy further by knocking him out with a hard punch. A while later, JD eventually regains consciousness and finds Moke by his side, making a call to 911. But JD quickly throws the phone away and tries to explain what happened. He reveals how the officer had come to see him, threatened him, and even took his fingerprints on a gun so he couldn't run. JD tells Moke he doesn't need an ambulance, but something else, referring to the emeralds. Feeling pity for his brother, Moke agrees to help him out and asks where the safe is. JD responds that it's in a nearby city and will take 2 days at most to complete the job. In the next scene, Moke calls his wife and makes up a story, saying JD's grandmother is on her deathbed in another city, and that he needs to take him there. This annoys Abby and she asks how he can even think of leaving her in such a condition. But Moke assures her that he'll drop JD off and come right back, adding that if they don't get rid of him now, he might end up living in their house permanently. Upon hearing this, Abby is finally convinced and she gives him the permission to go. The brothers then leave the place and stop at a motel to spend the night. When they get to their room, they realize there's only one bed, so they play rock, paper, scissors to decide who gets it. Moke ends up winning, but tells JD to take the bed since he's been sleeping on floors for years. However, the latter refuses and says Moke should take it instead, as it was his plan to come here. In the end, neither sleeps on the bed. Moke settles on the sofa while JD lies down on the floor. The next day, Farfel returns to JD's room looking for him, only to find a dummy in the bed. He then tracks the thief's phone but soon finds it inside the toilet, sending him into a fit of rage. Meanwhile, JD tells his brother that before they begin the job, he wants to visit someone. Moke wants to focus on the heist, but JD insists, saying it's very important. He explains that during his time in prison, there was someone who supported him online and that he just wants to meet her quickly since her house is on the way. Although Moke doesn't like the idea at all, he has no choice but to agree. A short while later, they arrive at the house, which belongs to JD's girlfriend, Bethesda. She's surprised and emotional to see him and says she's waited for him for a long time. Despite being angry that JD never informed her about his release, she softens after hearing what he went through. She then takes his hand and leads him to the bedroom, where she turns on some rock music. While they're busy doing private stuff, Moke wanders around the house and ends up watching cartoons in the living room. Suddenly, an orangutan enters and closes the door behind it, which startles Moke. He thinks it might attack him, but the ape simply lights a cigarette and starts smoking. It introduces itself as Samuel, and Moke replies by introducing himself too. But then, it begins to act strange and gets too close to Moke, eventually doing something that makes him extremely uncomfortable. Disturbed and alarmed, he quickly pulls away and runs outside to the car. Back inside, Bethesda leaves the room to use the bathroom. JD quickly uses the opportunity to steal her work ID from her purse. He then exits through the window and joins Moke in the car. As they drive away, Moke complains about the ape's disturbing behavior, but JD simply laughs it off as if nothing happened. After driving for another few hours, the brothers stop at another motel. While JD is taking a shower, Moke goes through his belongings and finds a stack of letters. When he opens them, he's shocked to discover they're from their mother, Kath, the same mother who had abandoned them years ago. One of the letters even says, "Our plan is in motion. Just don't tell Moke anything about it." Furious and feeling betrayed, Moke confronts JD and demands to know why their mother only wrote to him. JD replies that it's because Moke has anger issues, and he often gets emotional. But this only enraged Moke even more, and he accuses his brother of lying. He claims that there's no locker, no cop, and that everything was made up from the start. Refusing to be a part of all this, Moke grabs his clothes and decides to leave for good. But just as he reaches the corridor, their mother, Kath, steps out of one of the rooms. Moke is so shocked by her sudden appearance that he ends up falling from the railing. Later, the three of them go to a bar to discuss the situation. Moke, still angry, asks Kath why she never came back in 25 years, and whether she ever thought about what would happen to her sons. Kath admits that because of her greed and fear of the police, she went into hiding and never returned. The scene then cuts to the past where her boyfriend swallowed the emeralds. They managed to somehow evade the police, but Glenn soon passed away due to his injuries. As the cops were still hot on her heels, Kath quickly buried Glenn's body and fled the country. In the present, she reveals that she's dying and has come back only because her time is running out. Moke doesn't believe her, but JD steps in and says she has brain cancer and won't live for more than a year. When Moke hears this, he's still unwilling to be part of any plan. He says he's left all that behind and wants nothing to do with stolen diamonds or emeralds. JD tells him they're not stealing anything, only recovering what already belonged to their family. He tries to convince Moke by asking whether a waiter's salary is really enough to give his child a good life. The comment hits Moke like a ton of bricks and he eventually agrees to help with just this one job. The next day, the three of them head to the place where Kath had buried her boyfriend. Meanwhile, Officer Farfel shows up at Bethesda's house and interrogates her about JD. She responds that she doesn't know where he is, and that even if she did, she wouldn't say anything. But this only enraged the corrupt officer, so he grabs her and demands to know the whereabouts of JD. Under pressure, she finally admits that JD came with his brother, stole her ID card, and left without even saying goodbye. Farfel tries to ask more questions, but just then, the orangutan arrives, drags him inside the house, and beats him up badly. Back with the brothers, Moke uses Bethesda's stolen ID to access the construction site where she works and steals a JCB machine. The three of them then head to the location where the body was buried. Moke starts digging and eventually uncovers the remains along with the emeralds. But just as they find them, the landowner arrives with a group of people. As it turns out, the land is now part of a private golf course. The group starts chasing them and even attacks them with golf balls. In the chaos, one of the men grabs JD, but Moke manages to break him free. The three of them then escape into a nearby forest, taking the emeralds with them. Once there, they decide to bury the remains of Kath's old lover before moving forward. After recovering the emeralds, JD feels that everything has gone exactly the way it was meant to. Their mother's plan has finally come together after years of chaos. He thinks about how he was in prison, how Moke lost his job, and how despite all that, they have still managed to pull it off. But upon hearing this, Moke suddenly recalls something important. He never told anyone about him being fired from the restaurant. This makes him realize that both JD and their mother had planned everything, even his dismissal, just to push him into joining this mission. The furious Moke then erupts at his brother, calling him a liar and a manipulator who has ruined his peaceful life. JD admits that he hasn't been honest, but reminds Moke that he is not perfect either. The argument soon grows personal, and Moke ends up striking his brother with a shovel, sending him crashing inside the grave. He then walks away from there and sits near the river, trying to calm himself. Soon after, Kath finds him sitting alone and tries to talk to him. Moke says he always knew JD was manipulative, but never expected the same from her. He asks if she came back for them or just for the emeralds. Kath acknowledges that she failed them as a mother, and since she couldn't give them love, she at least wants to leave them some money before she dies. She then reveals that she has brain cancer and doesn't have much time left. At the same time, Farfel arrives at the spot and tracks them down. He angrily grabs JD, demanding the emeralds and threatening to send him back to prison. Upon hearing the commotion, Moke rushes to the scene and tries to fight Farfel to free his brother, but the officer easily overpowers him and ties both the brothers up. At this point, JD realizes that there's no other option, so he kicks the emeralds away, which their mother picks up. Farfel gives her a choice between running away with the loot or staying to save her sons. She thinks for a while and it appears she's going to help her sons. But all of a sudden, greed takes over her, and she ends up escaping with the emeralds. Farfel is shocked by her decision and starts dragging the brothers toward his car, saying he will take them to the police. JD threatens to expose him, but Farfel laughs it off, confident that no one will believe them since he is a police officer. JD says their mother will return, but a fed-up Moke is certain that she won't. Shortly after, the officer begins driving, but the brothers are busy fighting in the backseat. During the chaos, JD kicks Farfel in the face, causing the car to swerve and crash. This immediately knocks out the officer, giving JD and Moke the perfect chance to escape. After untying themselves, they find their way to a nearby junkyard, where they take a moment to catch their breath. Moke also calls his wife and reassures her that he'll be home soon. Later, JD tells him to walk away and stay out of it, but Moke refuses. He reminds JD that their mother still has the emeralds, so they need to find her and bring an end to this. Meanwhile, Kath is already at a diamond exchange, trading in the emeralds for cash, but she doesn't sell all of them and keeps a few for herself. As she steps outside with a large sum of cash, she finds her sons waiting for her. They've lost whatever trust they had left, and they confront her the moment she appears. Moke asks her directly what she plans to do with the money. Kath stammers, trying to come up with an excuse, but then, just like before, she makes a run for it. The brothers chase her down, following her into an abandoned mall. During the scuffle, the bag of money slips from her hands and hits the ground. As JD moves toward it, Farfel suddenly shows up with a gun in hand and starts firing. He angrily shouts that he's going to finish all of them. Caught off guard, JD and Moke pretend to surrender and try offering him the money to calm him down. But Farfel refuses to listen and demands the bag with no negotiation. The tension rises as the brothers begin arguing again, blaming each other for how things ended up this way. All the while, their mother watches from a level above, silently witnessing how her choices have torn her sons apart. Farfel, on the other hand, fires another shot into the air, prompting the brothers to throw him the bag. But the moment he opens it, a concealed canister of pepper spray bursts in his face, blinding him instantly. In a panic, he fires his gun wildly in all directions. One of the stray bullets hits a gas cylinder, triggering a massive explosion. Farfel is caught in the blast and thrown to the ground, but he manages to survive. Meanwhile, the brothers quickly grab the bag and try to escape, but realize that the police have already surrounded them. Just when all hope seems to be lost, Kath arrives at the scene. She calmly walks toward the police, intending to surrender herself and take the blame for everything. She looks at her sons one last time and urges them to leave through the back while she handles the police. The movie then cuts to a few weeks later, where Moke visits a corrupt judge and offers him his share of the money in exchange for the gun that had JD's fingerprints on it. It is revealed that the judge is none other than Officer Farfel's dad, so he gladly accepts the bribe without hesitation. With the last loose end tied up, Moke returns home, where his wife greets him with relief. That same evening, JD shows up too, and for the first time in years, the family sits down and shares a quiet meal together. Later, while cleaning up, JD casually mentions that he used his share of the money to buy a piece of land under Moke's daughter's name. The latter also admits that he gave his money to the judge, because deep down, he always knew he could count on his brother if he ever needed help. This means that both of them are now broke again, but at least they have each other. A few months later, JD, Moke, Abby, and their newborn daughter visit Kath in prison. The woman is overjoyed to see them, especially her granddaughter, and they chat for a while. When visiting hours end, she quietly returns to her cell while her sons and granddaughter walk away. Shortly after, JD stops Moke in the parking lot and whips out 2 emeralds from his pocket. It is then revealed that Kath, before surrendering, had swallowed the remaining emeralds, just like her old lover once did. She secretly passed it to JD a while ago, so that her sons can live a good life. In the present, Moke is delighted that they still have the emeralds, which means that they don't have to rely on odd jobs from now on. But as the movie ends, JD reveals that their mom actually gave him 3 emeralds, and he'll keep one for himself.